Mitakai Oyesin, all my relations, that's all of you. Hello, here I am again doing another conversation. Boy, I love these conversations, man. I've spoken to people from all cultural backgrounds, from all political backgrounds. So this is my neighbor Jed. I am going to let him introduce himself to you, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, my name's Jed, guess formerly Jason, as it were. Been called Jed for a long time now. Lived down the street from Mark now for, gosh, we're going on 12 years. It's been a while.
13. You moved in later, right? That's right.
So yeah, have had great conversations over the years, and so yeah, it's with all the things that are going on, I think it very much helps to get things talked out, things out in the atmosphere, to just talk through them. Yes, very open to the conversation for sure.
So the conversation, as always, is how to heal America. What have we been doing right so far? And by so far, I'm meaning since the whole COVID shutdown started, but more so than that, the whole reaction to the tragic murder of George Floyd. Mm-hmm. What have we been doing right? What have we been doing wrong? How do we course correct? Loaded question. Take it away.
Yes, lots to deal with there. I think starting with I think most people would agree, is probably the biggest issue is the murder of another human being. I think what's most disappointing in my end is seeing people who stand against the simplicity, at least the way I view it, the simplicity of Black Lives Matter. I mean, whether it's and I don't think necessarily people in some cases are trying to be confrontational when they say like all lives matter, police lives matter, and perhaps in some cases they are. I know there's definitely cases I've seen where they seem to be, but I don't want to put words in people's mouths, just trying to read reactions and the way they say things. But I just don't understand, I guess at the end of the day, how this is not something of extreme national priority, that this is clearly an issue. I mean, George Floyd is certainly not the first name that falls into this criteria, that police brutality has resulted in the death of an African American person. And in big picture, it's not just been police. You've had various different instances where African American, primarily males and females, that have been murdered. That it's just there's no better term for it. It's not like, well, it was an accidental and all this, courtroom crap that they talk about to get the cops and whoever off on a lesser charge. It's murder. I mean, it was extremely hard to watch the George Floyd video. I mean, it's just like I don't know. My wife tends to tell me I'm a little more emotional than the average guy. But, like, I had to pause it a few times. Like, I just don't understand how nothing is like no one's doing anything. Like, how is nobody doing anything? Like, what was it, like 11 minutes long, and you're watching like nobody from the crowds or anything? Like, no one's willing to go to jail to knock the cop off this dude so the dude can breathe. Like, none of the cops are doing anything. Like, I don't care if you're a trainee, do something. You wanted to be a cop, so you wanted to help, right? I know, but it's interesting to me because I think the protests are the right thing to do. I don't think you should do nothing by any means. This is something that should drive people to action. I mean, there's issues that have littered America for a long time that people have done nothing about. This thankfully is something where, and this is not the first protest, obviously. Pretty much sadly every time this happens, because it keeps happening, there's protests that go along with that. I think it's a disappointment across the board, though, that it doesn't seem like, from what I've seen, and this just might be skewed media and my inability to research and dig deep enough about what's actually happening on undercurrents. Like Beck and I got to talk about the other day when there was protesters outside the White House. I don't understand how you don't send a rep out and just ask for, like, who's the leadership here? Like, well, right. I don't think we can fit everybody in the conference room, but, like, let's have a few of you come and talk. Who's going to be your representatives? Like, let's talk about some action points. What needs to change? Like, you're at the right building for them to write an executive order to change things, but that doesn't seem to happen. Like, I again, didn't follow up on the article, but I thought I saw that they were just putting bigger fences in up at the White House. And I'm like, how is that the solution? Like, I guess it's the same issue of that's how we, as America in general, like to handle immigration. Like, we can't possibly think about how to integrate more people since it's a melting pot to begin with. Let's come up with a good option on how to bring people in and make them part of America. Isn't that the concept? We're all we're all from somewhere else. Unless you're Native American, we're all from somewhere else.
Right.
So we just love to put big walls up. I don't understand at what point, what'll be the breaking point that we take that, I guess both socially, politically, and physically, when do we stop putting walls up?
So my loaded question has led to an even deeper, more profound question.
That's how they work, right?
Yeah. Well, the last, I mean, everyone's been saying this really, but the last person that I interviewed,
Okay.
although she wasn't the last post that I made, but the last person I interviewed, Terrell, she actually said the words. She said, well, this is how we do it. This is how we try to fix America. We start having these conversations.
Right.
We do what
Makes sense.
what you're doing right now, Mark.
Yeah.
So with the idea that people will listen, I think I got up to 32 followers on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a slow process, but let me address what you say. First of all, yes, obviously, Black Lives Matter. To me, there's a distinction between Black Lives and Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter has been co-opted. That phrase
Oh, the organization?
has been
Okay.
co-opted by the organization.
Okay.
And the organization, I don't know what you read about the organization.
Just little bits here and there.
They, founded by 3 lesbians. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Founded by 3 lesbians who have said, I mean, it's right there on their mission statement page, that we stand against, we disrupt the Western normative idea of family. And then they go on and write and say, we want families and mothers and children, forgive me for not getting this verbatim, to feel protected or take care of them. Pointedly not mentioning men or fathers. And you talk to anybody who's going to give you an honest opinion of the number one problem within many black communities. It's lack of fathers.
Yeah.
And they're just going deeper into that. And one of them recently came out with a list of 10 suggestions, not demands, suggestions, which all came down to 2 things. Give all your property away to black people, all the white folks. It's 10 suggestions for white folks. Okay. Give all your property away to black people, and get anyone who says anything bad against that, get them fired.
Interesting.
So,
good thing they were suggestions.
2 things, right?
Oh.
Yes, Black Lives Matter, but since they have co-opted that phrase and they say, hey, there are so many people that are for us, yeah, I'm not for you. Black lives, however, yes, I'm for it. And all lives, yes, of course. But if somebody says to me, Black Lives Matter, first thing I say, yeah, of course. I don't shoot back with, yeah, all lives matter.
Right.
To me, it's not a contentious statement.
Right.
It's something I agree with.
Factual in that sense.
Yeah. And as far as the, I meant to bring my tablet with me. So there have been 2 things with the cops, with the police, that have been exposed, and one is, what is it called, qualified immunity?
Yes, qualified immunity, where they get quite a lot of leniency in the things that they do that they can't be held liable for.
And the other thing is with these no-knock SWAT raids.
Yeah.
And I did some research on that recently, and there was a lot of people from a lot of backgrounds who have been busted in, the house get busted into, and they get all shot up, some got killed. There was a guy, I forgot to bring my tablet, Duncan, somebody, in Memphis, probably wrong, but cops broke into his house, no knock, thought he had, I believe it was marijuana, a really deadly drug.
Yeah, the one that's legal in, 32 states now?
And killed him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's, what's being exposed is too many cops are just, they're on power trips. I know a lot of cops who are on power trips.
Mhm.
I know a lot of really good cops too.
Right.
I'd like to believe that there are more good cops than bad.
Hmm.
I mean, those are the ones I remember, but I also remember the ones who just, I don't know, they just, if I question them, like, who are you to question? I told you what to do. Listen to me. I've had those kind of conversations, monologues, diatribes.
Probably more of a
from cops.
monologue than a conversation, yeah.
Yeah. But I've also had some really nice conversations. I've been making a point of going, when I pass a police officer these days anywhere, say, hey, excuse me, thank you for your service.
Mhm.
With the assumption that they're one of the good ones.
Right. Well, I think that's one of the things of, I believe it's Camden who was the example that came up recently in the news where
Camden, yes.
they kind of basically, from, I think it was 3 different articles I read about it, trying to just kind of wrap my head around what is it that Camden did, because their numbers, I mean, you look at their numbers, you're like, you did something right. And they went to, not necessarily in a sense of defunding the police, but restructuring the way that it works.
Yes.
And I believe it's Portland. I believe it's a city in Oregon. I believe it's Portland, or it might have been, I think it was Eugene, Oregon. Had also done a really good job of reorganizing the way their police force works, putting mental health care workers in place, and basically restructuring is like, well, what are our actual needs? If we're dealing with a lot of people that are struggling with mental capacity issues, just making poor decision-making processes because they have mental issues, and there's all these undercurrents. It's like, you don't just arrest someone without knowing what's going on. Like, yes, I get it. Police work is extremely difficult. I applied to 2 different police departments myself, and it's you don't do that without realizing that you're getting into a job where, yeah, there's that reality of the cliche statement like, cops want to come home. But the reality of it, everybody wants to come home. No one goes out the door being like, look, gonna die today. Like, it's the reality of, I think, one of the quotes I believe that was most poignant to me was that Camden had restructured their police department, and I don't remember if it was an ethos they kind of put on the door before everybody leaves, but it's like, everyone should come home today. That includes the people you pull over, it includes the person you stop on the street that may have drugs, and maybe even the person you're chasing who's got a gun. Everybody wants to go home today. Now, some people may have done some things where they may not.
Right.
But the goal was, basically I believe the term was community policing, where you're in the neighborhoods, you're talking with people, so that basically the people trust the police again, and you get to this point where, yeah, when a crime goes on, people feel comfortable to tell the police. There's not going to be this monologue of like, you, this, that, and you're not going to get all the racial profiling. It's like, no, the officer that walks that beat knows exactly who you're talking about. It's almost like being at church. You got that one deacon that knows everybody, and you're just like, there was that tall guy that walked in. They're like, oh, Steve, know him. That frozen hunk down over there.
So, hey guys, I guess you figured out something happened. Because I am so incredibly professional at this, I allowed my camera battery to die. I didn't check it. So, hopefully you're seeing this, which means I found a way to piece it together and you're seeing it Friday morning. But I want to ask Jed a question. There are a lot of people now who are saying that I wouldn't presume to tell you, a white guy saying to a black guy, I wouldn't presume to tell you how to think or how to feel because I'm not black. And my reaction to that has always been, and always will be, I presume it. Because we're American, and even deeper, we're human, and we have many similar experiences. We have different cultural experiences, but I still believe that you could learn something from my wisdom, just like I could learn something from your wisdom. And to give you something deeper into that, as a human being and as a therapist, I never, ever go into any session with the client or conversation with the person with the idea, okay, it's time for you to shut up. I'm talking now. It's time for you to learn. I always have the goal that I'm going to learn something from that person before the conversation's over.
Okay.
And I'm going to find some way to connect to and respect that person, even if that person has views that I just don't agree with.
Right.
So I just laid out what it is for me. Yes, I presume. Mm-hmm. And black conservatives, like Larry Elder, like I was telling with Uncle Tom,
okay.
He says, yeah, we're Americans. We all help each other. We're family. That's my point of view. What is yours?
I think in holistic picture, I guess especially also as I get older, I've been very much, and well, I guess one of the big reasons I was all for this process was I enjoy the conversation. Um, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily the conversation in the end, but having that conversation for people to be able to open up. I think one of the things that frustrates me most is when people are unwilling to even address issues or possibly can't fathom having an issue. And like we've had, family members on her side, family members on my side, where like they can't even possibly be in the same room because they disagree about politics or like the way things work. It's like that just it doesn't click in my mind. Like, how can you not be in the same room with another human being? Like, it's not that they like killed your child or something. Like they just view things differently. Like, so talk about her. I mean, I guess in the worst contrast, then just not have that as a subject you bring up. Just be like, let's just leave that. It's like you can't be amicable. You can't be social. Like we're just down at a family's house, and they're like, oh yeah, they all can't be here at the same time. You're like, huh? Okay. I mean, that's one way to go through things, but I just sometimes I personally would be like, let's work through that. I mean, it's one of the things like I'm working through with my brother right now. It's like we've had 2 different instances where we talked for about 3 hours with Panera Bread trying to work through the issues that have come up, and it's like, as I told him when we left last time, like the ball's in your court. Let me know what we're doing. Like we can talk as long as you want. We can all sit down and talk. Like it's just sometimes just waiting on people.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing is I love the aspect of being able to have conversation. I can always deeply respect someone who can keep their cool and have the conversation. Like you said, like get down to the brass tacks of like, well, where's your perspective coming from? To give an example, I've often found, like I was referring to earlier with the pro-life movement, you get these people that are so hardcore about, and I'm personally I'm on the same page. I don't think there is a whole lot of reasons someone should be allowed to have an abortion. But again, that's just my perspective. I'm not a lawmaker. I love to have the conversation with people like, well, why do you feel differently? Feel differently? Like, yeah, the solution's not you punch me in the face. Let's have a conversation. Like, especially as a male, like it just seems like in a lot of cases there's no decision-making process for the male. Like it took 2 of us to make it, so how come you get all the choice to make it? Like I get you carry it, but like it wouldn't be there if it wasn't for me. So I digress. It's the value of being able to have conversation and people not getting so irate that they're just storming off or leave. It's just how do you not? And I get it. Things can be extremely passionate for people. They can be really personal, but not being willing, not being able to, even if you need some time to get to that point or have multiple conversations lead up to that point, not being willing to have the conversation to me seems like a travesty of sorts.
I agree.
It just seems disappointing to not be. It almost seems that I know I'll probably get in trouble for this in the sense of like calling people immature, but it's like it seems to me a level of maturity to be able to have conversations with people that are not just nodding along and saying yes to everything you say. Like those are easy situations because you agree with everybody. It's like getting along with somebody who's your best friend. Like you agree on a lot of things. That's typically what most people's best friend is. Like almost everything's like, yeah, man, I'm all about that. Like, okay, what about the people you don't really see eye to eye with? Like, say you're extreme, conservative. Like, can you talk with a progressive? Like, I mean, we just had a situation where one of our family members is gonna apparently go campaign for Trump, and some of the other family members are like, oh, I cannot believe this. People are losing their minds. Like, so have you taken the time to have a conversation why that's the choice they're making? Like, you can certainly disagree, but if you talked about it, like if you said why that's a big issue, like maybe there's that like one issue for them, like I can't budge on this, I can't,
right?
And that's that one thing they're sticking on. Or is it like no, across the board they love everything this person's doing? I mean, probably not that. I mean, that's really hard in politics to agree with everything some politician's doing. So if you're unwilling to have the conversation, to me that just seems very problematic. It seems very, I'll say it seems immature in my opinion. It's just like, where's the maturity to want to at least sit down and, again, you can always at the end of the day be like, agree to disagree. Like that's the way I view it. That's the way you view it. I just don't think we're gonna iron out the world's problems today.
Tomorrow.
That's fine. Yeah, we always have tomorrow, as it were, Lord willing. But yeah, and it might be as I'm getting older, I'm I'm doing better at that because I personally am getting better at being non-confrontational and saying things in more, I guess, mannerisms and the way I say things. I feel like have gotten better, not only as Beck and I work through our marriage relationship and communication, but communication with others, that I'm not. At one point, someone said I made them feel like an idiot, and I get there are times when, because I'm a very logical, rational person, I go right down to the facts. I'm like, I don't know how you could possibly believe that.
Right.
Like, there's probably a better way to say that than, how do you not understand these facts? Like, well, here's what I understand is what's happening. Just being more cordial and being more understanding of a lot of times people are going to be at the stages they're at. Not everybody's looked at every nuance of everything. Like when you brought up the Black Lives Matter organization, like I didn't know that about their origins and stuff. So it's, like you said, there's always something to be learned. And it's, I think it was when I was working at PVU, my alma mater, that they had a little sign when we'd meet in the conference room that if your goal is to win an argument, you've already lost.
Yeah.
That the concept is, it was like, it's a conversation.
I'm familiar with this.
And I was like, that has always stuck with me, because it's like, if you're going into something to win, like, it's not a sports match. It's a conversation. Like, you're not supposed to come out and be like, oh, I own him. Like, that was great. Like, oh, I ruled that conference. Like, that's not what that's supposed to be about. Or like, I made all my points. They had to apologize. Like,
there are some people. There are people on Facebook, and there are a few people in my life that think that
that's how it works.
well, they think that we're enemies. Like, I don't have any enemies. I'm not boasting. I don't see anybody as an enemy. I see somebody as, we have opposing point of view.
Right.
And it's somebody that I'm still working on trying to find a good way to converse with them.
Right.
You know, I think I'm doing a good job, but they don't. But you're not an enemy.
Right.
And I don't believe in the idea of sides. You got to pick a side. What? What side?
Right. Well, Beck and I have always struggled with that from the political view of things, where the idea of, it's challenging in a two-party system, because when you view yourself of like, well, I like quite a bit of what this group's talking about. I like this part of what they're talking about. Like, where's the candidate that represents those ideas? Like, oh, they're on either sides, and I have to pick.
That would be you.
Yeah, it's that thing of.
I should bring this to a close, but I don't know how I'm going to edit all this. Hopefully, I'll get it all in, and hopefully, you guys will see it. You're seeing it right now. So, as I always close off, peace four fingers. He asked me about that one time. I said, I don't know. I just was trying to come up with something. So, peace four fingers. And thanks. Hopefully, you guys will be, one of you who are watching right now will be part of this sometime in the near future. Thanks.